Marcus Hale thought the absolute last person connected to his ex that he would ever hear from again was her mother, especially after the ugly breakup that had turned his life upside down. But 3 years after everything collapsed, while he was finally rebuilding his reputation as a contractor and trying to forget the emotional train wreck that relationship left behind, his phone lit up with a number he almost ignored. On the other end was Diane, his ex-mother, sounding strangely warm, strangely desperate, asking if he could repair her collapsing porch because she trusted no one else to do it right. And honestly, bro, hearing that already felt suspicious. People don't randomly come back into your life after years of silence unless something is broken or they need something. But what Marcus didn't know yet was that this simple repair job was about to drag him into entitlement, manipulation, buried resentment, and a promise that would end up costing someone way more than money. Marcus Hale stared at his phone for a solid minute after the call ended, genuinely wondering if life had just decided to run an old nightmare back for entertainment. Because this wasn't some harmless coincidence. Diane wasn't just his ex's mom. She was practically family once, back when Marcus and his ex Jenna had been together for 6 years. It fixed half the problems in that household without ever being asked twice. Broken cabinets, leaking pipes, fence damage after storms, even repainting the kitchen because Diane once casually mentioned contractors were too expensive. Marcus had been the reliable one, the guy everyone called dependable, the kind of person who stayed late helping while everyone else relaxed inside with coffee and opinions. And like a lot of people who care too much, he never questioned it because he believed effort mattered, that loyalty meant something. Looking back though, bro, this part hit hard because sometimes people confuse kindness with unlimited access. The breakup had wrecked him in ways he rarely talked about. Jenna hadn't just left, she had blindsided him. One week, they were talking about moving in together permanently and planning finances. And the next she admitted she'd been emotionally checked out for months and seeing someone else to figure herself out. That sentence alone sounds ridiculous when you hear it later. Marcus had spent months replaying every conversation in his head wondering what warning signs he missed, while the people around Jenna quietly disappeared from his life like nothing had happened. Diane included? No calls, no check-ins, no acknowledgement that Marcus had practically become family for years. Silence. Total silence. 3. So when Diane suddenly resurfaced, sounding unusually friendly, Marcus felt every internal alarm bell ringing. Still, curiosity is dangerous. She explained that her front porch was unstable after weather damage, boards were rotting, and another contractor had apparently canceled after giving her a massive estimate. Then came the sentence that caught him completely off guard. She said, "Finish it, and I'll make it worth your while." That wording stuck in his head like a song lyric you hate but can't stop replaying, because Diane had never been generous with money, ever. In fact, she had a reputation for somehow turning favors into obligations, family dinners where everyone mysteriously split costs except her, quick jobs that became all-day projects, endless promises of appreciation instead of actual compensation. That's exactly how people act in real life sometimes. They make gratitude sound like payment. Marcus almost declined immediately. Honestly, he should have. But business had slowed that month, and despite building a decent reputation as an independent contractor, work wasn't perfectly stable. Bills didn't care about pride. Rent definitely didn't care about emotional history. Diane also sounded vulnerable in a way Marcus hadn't heard before, mentioning trouble getting around and how unsafe the dyed porch had become. And whether he liked it or not, Marcus still had a weakness for helping people who sounded overwhelmed. He agreed to at least inspect it. The second he pulled into Diane's driveway, 2 days later, something felt off. The house looked strangely untouched, like time had frozen after he disappeared from their lives. Same flower pots, same faded wind chime, same porch swing Jetta used to sit on while scrolling her phone, pretending to listen to him talk about work stress. For that memory alone nearly made him leave. But Diane came outside, smiling so wide it almost looked rehearsed, greeting him with the kind of warmth people suddenly discover when they need labor. And then Marcus saw the porch. What she described as minor repairs looked dangerously close to complete reconstruction. Several support boards had warped, sections leaned unevenly, railing posts wobbled when touched, and entire portions looked like they'd been ignored for years. Marcus crouched to inspect loose framing while mentally calculating labor hours, material costs, safety risks, and frustration levels all at once. This wasn't not a weekend favor. This was expensive and time-consuming, legitimate contractor work. Then Diane casually laughed and said she figured he'd know what to do since he'd always been so handy. Bro, the way entitlement sneaks into conversations like that. Unreal. Still, before Marcus could even explain the scale of the job, Diane dropped another line that stopped him cold. She smiled, lowered her voice slightly, and reminded him that she always took care of people who took care of her. The way she said it sounded confident, certain, like there was something waiting at the finish line, and for reasons Marcus couldn't explain yet, that sentence kept him from walking away, even though deep down, something already felt dangerously familiar. Marcus should have trusted his instincts the moment Diane said she would take care of him, because over the next few days, the situation started feeling less like a paid project and more like one of those slow-motion disasters you only recognize after you're already trapped in it. He spent the first afternoon creating an actual assessment, measuring damaged sections, checking support beams, listing materials, and mentally trying to salvage costs in a way that would still make sense. Financially, the porch was worse than it looked. 5. Water damage had spread beneath surface boards, parts of the frame were unstable, and one hard storm probably would have turned the whole thing into a liability nightmare. Marcus explained carefully that this wasn't a patch-up job. It needed serious work. Diane nodded through the explanation with suspicious competence, waving off concerns and repeatedly saying she trusted him. Completely, which, weirdly enough, started sounding less flattering and more manipulative the longer it continued. Then came the first red flag. Diane suddenly started acting like Marcus being there meant unlimited access to his time. She interrupted measurements, asking him to quickly fix a sticking back door, then a loose kitchen shelf, then a dripping faucet she conveniently forgot to mention. Every extra task came wrapped in fake casualness, like she genuinely believed none of it counted. And Marcus, already halfway committed, kept telling himself it wasn't a huge deal. Just finish the porch, get compensated, move on. Easy. Except it stopped feeling easy fast. By day 3, Diane started making comments that crawled under Marcus's skin. Little remarks about how Jenna had always appreciated hard-working men, or how relationships failed because people stopped putting effort into families. Subtle, passive-aggressive. The kind of comments designed to poke old bruises without looking obvious. Marcus ignored it at first. But bro, hearing someone rewrite history while asking favors, that part genuinely made my jaw tighten. Then the tension turned strange. A neighbor casually walked by and thanked Marcus for helping Diane out for free, saying it was sweet that he still treated her like family after everything with Jenna. For free! That word hit Marcus like cold water. Sex, he laughed awkwardly at first, thinking maybe it was a misunderstanding. But later that evening, while Diane chatted casually over iced tea, Marcus carefully brought up payment expectations, material reimbursement, and timeline costs. And Diane, without even blinking, looked confused. Confused? She said she thought the arrangement was obvious, that helping her was just a decent thing to do after all the years she treated him like family. And then she smiled and repeated the same sentence that suddenly sounded completely different. Finish it and I'll make it worth your while. Only this time, Marcus realized she wasn't talking about money. And suddenly, the entire job felt like a trap he hadn't fully seen coming. The realization settled into Marcus like wet cement, heavy and impossible to ignore. Diane had never intended to treat this like professional work. Somewhere in her mind, years of old emotional proximity still translated into obligation, and suddenly every strange comment, every convenient extra repair, every carefully timed reminder about loyalty started connecting in a way that made Marcus feel equal parts angry and embarrassed. Bro, this part genuinely blew my mind because people really will rewrite history to justify taking advantage of someone while convincing themselves they are being reasonable. Marcus drove home that night, replaying everything in his head, realizing he had already invested hours of unpaid labor, used tools, spent energy sourcing material estimates, and somehow ended up feeling guilty for even expecting compensation. That emotional sleight of hand was almost impressive. But Marcus stopped himself from spiraling and did something he had not done enough during his relationship with Jenna or her family. He got practical. 7. The next morning, before returning, Marcus documented every completed task, photographed damaged sections, calculated labor already spent, listed projected material costs, and drafted a clean professional estimate under his business name. No anger, no emotional speech, no messy confrontation, just facts. Honestly, that level of calm restraint felt more satisfying than yelling ever could. When he arrived, Diane immediately acted as if work would continue normally, casually, pointing out another list of small things around the property, treating Marcus less like a contractor and more like permanent unpaid maintenance. Except this time, Marcus never picked up a tool. He walked the porch one final time, calmly reviewed structural concerns, and explained in the most professional way. Possible that continuing work required approval of a formal agreement, labor costs, material reimbursement, and payment scheduling up front. The emotional fog disappeared instantly. What happened next felt almost surreal. The warmth vanished. Suddenly Diane looked offended, inconvenienced, almost insulted that boundaries existed at all. She shifted into guilt, subtly reframing Marcus as selfish, implying family loyalty should matter more than money, even hinting that successful people forgot who supported them early on. That part was unbelievable because the support she referenced mostly looked like Marcus giving while everyone else accepted. But Marcus had already reached a breaking point emotionally. Instead of arguing, defending himself, or reopening old wounds, he packed his equipment, emailed the estimate before leaving, and calmly informed her the partially stabilized porch would remain safe temporarily but unfinished until professional terms were agreed upon. Then karma arrived faster than anyone expected. 8. Within days, Diane reportedly struggled to find contractors willing to touch the job cheaply. Estimates came back dramatically higher than Marcus originally planned, especially after delayed damage worsened. And suddenly, the dependable person she quietly assumed would always say yes was gone. Except now he had invoices, boundaries, and absolutely nothing left to prove. A week later, Marcus received a short message from Diane that sounded nothing like the confident woman who had assumed guilt and nostalgia could replace payment. The tone had shifted completely. No passive comments. No family language, just practical questions about whether his estimate was still valid. And honestly, that moment said everything. Marcus reread the message twice before calmly declining the project. Not dramatically, not bitterly, just professionally. By then, he had already booked paying clients and realized something bigger than money had changed. For the first time in years, he stopped confusing loyalty with obligation. Diane eventually hired someone else for significantly more, while Marcus quietly moved forward without reopening old emotional damage. Funny how the second boundaries appear. People suddenly remember your value. That lesson alone probably saved him from repeating the same mistake twice. Bro, hearing this whole situation genuinely stuck with me because it shows how fast people mistake kindness for permanent access. That's exactly how entitlement works in real life. Someone benefits from your effort for so long that boundaries suddenly feel offensive to them. And honestly, Marcus walking away without revenge, yelling, or chaos somehow felt like the biggest comeback of all. Sometimes karma is just people realizing the favor they took for her. Granted, had value the entire time,